Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and this video is for the mask zealots. That's right, this video for the mask zealots out there. This video is about bullying and stigma associated with the hysteria over mask wearing that's going on around the globe today. Hysteria, paranoia, fear-driven behavior, leading to discrimination, bullying, and stigma, and that's the subject of this video. This really puts me in mind of those folks who started smoking marijuana openly on the streets of Manhattan and in Las Vegas, despite city ordinances banning public smoking of such illicit substances. Found myself walking around the streets of Manhattan the past few years, being accosted by the toxic smell of marijuana. I know a lot of people out there love weed, so you're going to give me a no like on this video, and that's fine. That's your prerogative. But those are public spaces, and I shouldn't have to breathe in those fumes as I walk through the streets, nor should children be exposed to such things. Yet, when I politely, without any commentary or facial movements, go out of my way to avoid that sort of thing, get verbally accosted by these arrogant marijuana smokers in New York and in Las Vegas. And this is what puts me in mind of what's happening now with mask wearing around the world, but especially here in the United States. Seeing people accosting others who are maintaining social distance and minding their own business, both verbally and physically accosting them. Attacking people for not wearing masks by throwing scalding coffee on them. It's absolutely insane. For those who saw the Manhattan Beach video of the two gentlemen sitting on a bench facing away from public view, not wearing masks, maintaining social distance, yet this young couple of clowns show up and start interfering with them in a virtually empty city street and asking them why they're not wearing a mask. And then eventually the woman throws scalding coffee on one of the gentlemen. And then they call the police. Yeah. How about you just keep walking, keep your trap shut? You want to wear a mask? That's your personal preference. They're not required to wear a mask where they're sitting, and they weren't. And they were maintaining social distance, and they were not interfering with your space, nor were they breathing on you. They were no threat to you whatsoever. Your arrogance, your cheek, your abuse is what escalated that situation. What about all these people in office around the country accusing those who deign to protest outside state capitals like Harrisburg to complain about the capricious overreach of government during the lockdown, banning the opening of businesses under unscientific bans, no scientific data whatsoever supported? Governor Tom Wolf of Pennsylvania threatening to imprison business owners and threatening to imprison protesters who maintain social distance, and even many of them wearing masks at the time when it was recommended that we don't wear masks. Yet city officials in Harrisburg, in Seattle, in Philadelphia, in New York, in Portland, look the other way when violent violence, not protesting when you're violent, ladies and gentlemen, when armed insurrectionists attack our city centers, running around, most of them not wearing masks, threatening people's lives, damaging property, and not maintaining any social distance whatsoever. These officials completely look the other way. They have nothing to say about it. That's perfectly acceptable behavior. But when lawful assembly, something guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution, takes place with people who adhere to Centers for Disease Control recommendations at the time, they are deemed extremist. You people need to get your head screwed on straight. Where is your scientific evidence for wearing masks, by the way? Did you all publish academic papers on the efficacy of facial coverings versus homemade mask versus the N95 mask? What is a safe face covering? What mask is appropriate? Do you even know? Those of you out there accosting others for not wearing masks. What is the efficacy of a handkerchief over one's face? Why is it before this COVID hysteria that the only folks we ever saw wearing face masks were primarily hospital patients, those with active tuberculosis, first responders, and medical personnel? Lots of people got the flu. Tuberculosis, which is just as infectious, if not more infectious than COVID-19, and is transmitted in exactly the same fashion through droplets and aerosolized saliva and things like that. Transmitted exactly the same fashion. Why is it that the world wasn't wearing masks for a disease that last year killed 1.5 million people globally? After 11 months now, 10 months of COVID-19, we've yet to reach 1 million people attributed to losing their lives over this disease. Yet people are being demonized for not wearing masks. The same people who maintain their social distance and do not accost or threaten anyone. Why is it that you so easily attack others when you yourself cannot articulate the efficacy of masks or even differentiate between the types of masks, or provide any scientific evidence about the utility of masks. Now we see widespread bullying by corporations themselves who refuse service to customers for not wearing masks, even in jurisdictions where public health officials have not deemed it necessary or required people to wear masks. We see companies like Starbucks demanding that their customers, their 9,000 U.S. stores, wear a mask across the entire country, when they know for a fact that COVID-19 is concentrated in a handful of states, particularly irresponsible places like Washington, Oregon, New York, where officials encouraged citizens to disobey guidance and disregard guidance from the National Institutes of Health, the Centers for Disease Control, all because the Trump administration issued guidelines in January, February, and March. And they told people to ignore them, thereby spreading the disease. Yet, even though this disease is concentrated in a handful of states, 6 to be exact, the entire country, 3,000 miles from coast to coast, 2,000 miles from north to south, 50 states, 2 of them physically isolated from here, Hawaii and Alaska, plus our territories. The same rule applies everywhere. Yet Starbucks doesn't apply this policy globally to all of its stores and licensed stores around the planet, even in countries with far worse situations with COVID-19. Yet here in the United States, they capriciously apply this. And they're not alone. Other corporate bullies are out there. They give no reason for the mask. They've already made it impossible for people to sit in their stores, removing all the chairs, banning people from sitting in the stores, but they let them sit outside right next to each other, not maintaining social distance. Do you see the hypocrisy and the lunacy of this? This is simply bullying. It's not scientific. It's not valid. It's not correct. So what is the safe distance when it comes to COVID-19? Do you even know, Mr. or Miss Bully? How far does a sneeze, for instance, how far does a sneeze transmit? Do you have even a remote idea? Would you be surprised to learn the sneeze can travel as far as 24 feet? About 6 meters. Would that surprise you? How far does a cough transmit? Do you have any concept of that? Odds are most of you do not. Your fear-driven panic is not based on reason or science. Your bullying and stigmatization of others is unwarranted. Ladies and gentlemen, we've seen this countless times throughout human history. Most recently over HIV/AIDS. The fear-driven stigma associated with HIV had horrible consequences for the planet, including travel bans, banning people from entering other countries because they're HIV positive, as if being HIV positive would damage the health of others. This irrational fear. Denial of services, murders of people for being HIV positive, exclusion from society and social groups, demonization of those who are HIV positive, and the consequent self-isolation for people who kept themselves away from others and the psychological harm that that has done. Discriminatory policy against people who are HIV positive. And this fueled the pandemic. The HIV pandemic was fueled in major ways because people were terrified to get positive HIV test results. So tens of millions of people would simply not get tested for HIV. Better not know, better to not know than to find out you're HIV positive. When folks who are not required to wear masks, either because of medical conditions that you are unaware of, and you interject yourself into their lives by calling them names or being dismissive or refusing them service when they're within their rights and they're not endangering your health. You don't even know the distance. How do you know if you're endangered? This Salem witch hunt nonsense must stop. And it's happening without people commenting on it. So I'm here to comment on it, ladies and gentlemen. You're stigmatizing people over your irrational fears, your lack of understanding, your lack of knowledge. You should think twice before interjecting yourself into the lives and spaces of others. Virtually no public health authorities anywhere on the planet have given legitimate scientific reasons or research-based evidence for why they've told people initially not to wear masks, saying it didn't have any impact, it was not effective, and now criminalizing behavior. The state of Indiana passing legislation that imprisons a person, denies them their liberty, turns them into criminals for 6 months for not wearing a mask. I ask you, what scientific information did the legislature and the Republican governor of Indiana rely on to make that asinine law? This is beyond reality, folks. This is not the Black Plague. The bubonic plague from 1347 to 1353 killed an estimated 75 to 1 or 200 million Europeans on a continent that was far smaller than it is today. Horrific death rates, horrific suffering in a short period of time. By November, December, we'll reach 1 year of the world being aware of COVID-19. We aren't going to reach 7 million, let alone 75 million. We probably won't reach 1 million lives, perhaps 1 million lives attributed to this virus, the deaths. All of the deaths are unfortunate. But this is not the Black Plague. It's not even tuberculosis, which killed 1.5 million people globally in 2019. Those of you who run around and stigmatize people over masks, check yourself. Check your behavior. If somebody's running around without a mask and breathing all over you, getting in your space, then you have reason to have issue with those people. But be careful when you stigmatize. People use differences and different behavior to demonize people all the time. It's what leads to discrimination, unwarranted discrimination. It's what leads to racism and bigotry. And your bigotry against people not wearing masks is shameful. Now, many of you will misinterpret this video and go, no, this is horrible. Another mask denier, a science denier, a right-wing zealot. None of that's true. I'm not advocating not wearing masks. I see the utility of wearing masks, particularly around somebody who's coughing and sneezing. For good Lord's sake. I appreciate that. But the same people running around screaming at others for not wearing masks are never washing their hands. You don't see them using hand sanitizer or cleaning their hands after touching surfaces or avoiding contact with others. They're not doing those things. The mask is not magically saving you. It's not a silver bullet. In fact, most masks provide no protection whatsoever. Yet your reverence for appointed or elected officials who are largely not scientists, and even the scientists don't know what they're doing, consistently giving us wrong information, is misplaced. This is not a mask denial video. This is not a video castigating people for wearing masks. It's a video telling people who are bullying others to stop it. Stop the stigma. Stop the harassment. Stop the bullying. Whether you're chuckleheads walking down the street, harassing others, or your corporations like Starbucks and Walmart harassing your customers with no scientific basis in jurisdictions where public health officials have not even required people to wear masks. It must stop. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. It took 3 decades to overcome the stigma of HIV, and in many respects, we haven't overcome it yet. How long will it take to overcome this? People righteously, self-arrogantly placing themselves above others because they have fallen into hysteria and fear-driven paranoia by government officials, as if those government officials know what the hell they're doing. If they did, we'd have balanced budgets. We'd wipe out poverty. We'd wipe out unfair discrimination. But we haven't anywhere in the world. We've made great progress against it in many places, but we haven't solved all these woes. Why? Because they're humans, they're fallible, and they make and are making mistakes on a daily basis. Don't wear a mask. Wear a mask. Your pets won't be affected. Your pets are affected. It can't be transmitted human to human. Well, indeed it can, Dr. Tedros, the World Health Organization, and the Chinese Communist Party. In fact, it is transmitted human to human. You dunderheads. Thanks for sharing that bad information with us. Constantly getting it wrong. I'm not advocating ignoring public health officials. What I'm advocating is shut your yaps and stop harassing others. Someone invades your space, yeah, then you have a legitimate issue. But a person who's simply going about their business, maintaining their distance from you and not harassing you is not a person that you should be bothering. Well, folks, I'm sure this video will get a few tongues wagging, and I'm sure a lot of people won't watch the entire video, and they'll just start with their stupid comments about, oh, another mask denier, another right mask. Yeah, no, knock it off. Watch the whole video and get the point. Stigma is shameful, and self-righteousness is unwarranted. So knock it off. This is a message to you, Mr. and Miss Bully. Knock it off. Have a good day, folks.